Fortnite's dying. Before you freak out, let me explain why. We have known if Fortnite's popularity were to start decreasing, their last Hail Mary's the OG map. Recently, Epic Games pulled the trigger on this at seemingly a weird time, as they still had a good player count. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, the OG map brought in more players than ever. That's a good thing, right? Well, yes, more players on a surface level is good, but it also shows a worrying sign on the state of the game, and what made Epic so scared to use their trump card. Now, we're going to get into all of this, but first we need to understand a few things. Starting with a question. What does it mean to be dead? Well, it depends on how you look at the question. In a literal sense, it's being deprived of life. In a video game sense, it'd be a lack of players. Or in other words, a decrease of energy. Now, I understand this fact may not seem important and somewhat repetitive, but it will be important for later, so try to remember it. Now, we need to look at Fortnite on a deeper level than normal. Something beyond player counts. To do this, we're going to look at two clips. The first one by Ninja, the second by Sypher. Now, what I want you to do is to try and look past just the words that are being said and more into why the words are being said. You got that? Okay, let's get started.
I mean, I think that this is just to get people to get back on the game and then hopefully try out the new chapter one more time and be like, oh my god, Fortnite is actually still fun.
I always thought, like, if the game was going downhill and player count was going really low, they'd pull out the trump card and be like, all right, guys, we're going back to chapter 1. But they're pulling it out right now, and that just tells me one thing. It tells me that what they have planned is so crazy that they want all eyes on the game so that they can reveal some crazy stuff at the end of the year.
Okay, so why were these two clips shown? Well, for one, Sypher and Ninja are big-name YouTubers who bring in millions of views, and because they show two completely different perspectives of the game that intertwine in unique ways. Starting with Ninja's perspective, he simply believes that Epic's trying to get people back on the game. Now, we can see this idea seems correct as Fortnite's pulled in all-time highs, but sometimes what you see on the surface isn't completely true. This brings us to Sypher's perspective. He believes that the game's in a good state and that Epic just wants all eyes on it for a crazy event. Both these ideas seem normal and believable on the surface, but let's combine both ideas into the fact that the OG map brings people back into the game. Now, why would Epic do this when they're pulling peak numbers even before the OG update? One idea follows Sypher that they have a crazy event planned, which may honestly be true. But what if Epic can see something the rest of us can't? To explain what I mean, I want you to think back to when Fortnite was in its prime years, those 2018 to 2020 years. Back when everyone you knew was playing. During these years, Fortnite went from 125 million players to 350 million. Rough estimates from the time guessed that about 12% of that number were daily players. This number obviously would range up and down depending on the time, event, and whatever else is happening, but it'll work enough for today. That being said, it is to note that this number's not perfect but a rough estimate, as Epic didn't allow this data to be public till recently. If we use this number to compare to present-day Fortnite's 500 million players, that 12% will give us 60 million players. But Fortnite said themselves their highest daily player count was 47 million. So what's happening? Why is that percentage of daily players going down? Well, a number of factors are in play. First, 500 million is a far greater number of accounts to have daily players on. Next is a lot of players have more than one account. Unfortunately, any data, even rough data, isn't available for this, but I can almost guarantee you or someone else you know has had 2 accounts. And if someone with 2 accounts is even playing Fortnite, they can only use one account at a time, rendering the other account inactive. On top of this, if they don't play at all, that's 2 inactive accounts for that day. And obviously, there are also people who have quit Fortnite and haven't played it in years. Unfortunately, again, there's no data available to the public for this, but I believe Epic has access to this data. And that's the data that scared them into bringing the OG map sooner than expected. Now, I bet a lot of you are thinking, okay, Epic got worried and they brought back the old map. But again, they have their highest player count ever, so everything's good. Well, yes, they have increased their live player count drastically with the OG event, but how do they keep these players online? This question takes us into why people stopped playing Fortnite in the first place. I mean, some grew up and had families, others found better hobbies, but what about the diehard fans? Why did they leave? The answer is relatively simple, and it's frustrations with the game. Here's a great example, removing Sypher. This decision was made recently by Epic, and it lost a decent chunk of its player base, and shows that they don't care as they never reversed it. This is the biggest issue with Epic, and why I believe they are already running OG fans away. Recently, we had week 2 of the update, which brought in the grapple glove, a non-OG weapon. This left a lot of fans who just came back upset, and we can already see the result by the player count dropping in the hundreds of thousands. While this decision may have been made for story reasons, I believe its effects are a very worrying sign for what is to come when OG ends. Because when a developer makes a bad decision, people stop playing. And we have a couple great examples of other huge game corporations doing just that. Battlefield, a half-finished game, killed it immediately. Halo, a lack of a good multiplayer, killed it almost immediately. Modern Warfare 2, 60% of its player base gone after 6 months. This clearly shows a pattern suggesting when a developer goes a route with their game that fans dislike, they stop playing. And I believe when OG ends, it will lose a large portion of players, and combined with the other issues we talked about earlier, will slow the game down to death. Now, rounding off back to our definition of dead. If you remember, dead can mean a variety of terms, especially when related to video games. Battlefield, Halo, COD, they're all huge brands like Fortnite that can never truly be dead. But they will stop growing. And if those games are considered dead when they're still around, I think Fortnite could also be considered dead. So in a way, I technically did clickbait you, but you can see where I'm going with it. And it must have been a good video for you to still be here, so please consider subscribing so I can make more videos like this. Thank you.